Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. This is episode 389 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me, whether you're joining me here on YouTube or on all the different audio podcast platforms. Appreciate you all. As always, today it is Jets Broncos week, Sunday afternoon matchup, week number 4. We are joined by Amir Farrell, host of Broncos Avenue. Amir, thanks so much for coming back on. How's it going, man?
It's doing pretty well. Broncos got their first win of the season. Always feels great to be back in the win column. Bo Nix's first win. Victory Monday is always it's always a great feeling. But how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Yeah, Victory Monday. It's a great time of year for obviously football back in the swing of things. Get a nice win, and both teams actually coming into this week with W's. Obviously, the Jets on Thursday night, Broncos yesterday. Two dominant victories as well, right? Jets
Yeah.
24-3 over New England last week, or Thursday night. Yesterday afternoon, Broncos all over Tampa, and Baker Mayfield made his life miserable. So both teams coming into this one with good momentum. I want to start, Bo Nix first victory, of course, yesterday afternoon. I just want to get your take on Bo Nix, what you've seen from him so far, rookie season, of course, the Broncos as a whole, and then two, just some of your thoughts as an outside perspective from what you've seen from the Jets and specifically Rodgers 3 games in post Achilles tear.
Yeah, so starting off with Bo Nix and the Broncos, first game is a little rough. Obviously, his first NFL start. It's on the road in Seattle with the 12s, one of the more tough environments, obviously, for a rookie quarterback. Sixth quarterback take, and I think he's definitely performed above expectations for a lot of NFL fans. I know the first 2 weeks were a little bit rough, but I mean, he's right there with Jane Daniels. I know we're still to see him play tonight on Monday Night Football, but I mean, he's been right there with Jane Daniels for like the best rookie quarterback so far. I know JJ McCarthy's out for the year, but just for guys that are starting right now, he's been up there. Week 3, he definitely solidified his status in that area. He played definitely well against Tampa Bay's defense. They have been playing pretty stellar football this year. I know they're missing some players on that defensive line, but I've been overall, like, a lot of people have been freaking out after the first 2 games of Bo Nix and his development, but it's going to take time. I mean, the patience is key for a rookie quarterback, and this is Sean Payne's first time starting a rookie quarterback week 1, let alone. So I mean, I think he's done well with the challenge. Play callings have been a little bit iffy here and there. Personnel, and then our receivers just not getting a lot of separation. He was our leading rusher the first 2 games of the season. I mean, that hasn't happened for rookie quarterbacks since like 1950. So, I mean, he's been put in a little bit of a rough situation. I've been pleased with how he's responded to different defensive packages and blitz packages. The most important thing with him is he's showing some big growth, significant growth from week 1 to week 2 to now to week 3. So, and then as for the Jets, I mean, I told you before the show, I'm a big fan of Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best players in football. He's reminding people of that at 40 years old. I mean, he's one of one for sure. On and off the field, big fan of his. And then, yeah, the Jets in general, I mean, they're a bigger test of a defense than what the Buccaneers were in week 3. So I'm looking forward to this game.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Obviously, another big road test too for Knicks early in the season. You mentioned, of course, Seattle in the 12th man, week number 1. I guess just want to get your thoughts. Like, obviously you've seen Bo Nix now 3 games in. What are your expectations? I know it's early, very, very early into his career, such a small sample size, but like kind of floor ceiling of what maybe he can be, years to come, games to come for this Denver team.
I think obviously the number one player people look at when it comes to a comparison is Drew Brees. I mean, multiple players and coaches have made that comparison. I know Sean Payne after the game said in his press conference that he said he's gonna be something in this league, which is obviously really encouraging for Broncos fans. Sean Payne doesn't say that about just anybody. I think his ceiling. I think he can be a really good quarterback just in terms of taking the care of the football, not turning over the ball a lot. I know he has 4 interceptions through the first 3 games. He didn't throw any yesterday. One of those interceptions came on a Hail Mary attempt. The other interceptions, yeah, I mean, he's a rookie quarterback. He's starting week 1, starting right away as a rookie. So I think just in terms of like his ceiling, I think he could be a really like high end, like I would say at some point a top 16 quarterback. I'm not going to go as far to say he can be a top 10 I mean, he could be a top 10 quarterback, but I'm kind of tempering my expectations a little bit. I don't think Bo Nix is going to be like taking off as soon as year one or year two, in terms of being like an elite quarterback. But I see him at some point in his career just staying around that like top 16 quarterback mark. I think he'll be an above average quarterback for pretty much the entirety of his career. I think he could be like later in his career because it took Drew Brees some time. I think at some point he can be like regarded as like a top 10, maybe even top 8 quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see how it continues to, of course, play out. Something he showed off on Sunday was his ability to run the football as well. And that was not just Bo Nix, but the Broncos as a whole found a little bit of success there in the run game on some Sunday, something that feels like they struggled a little bit early on the first 2 weeks. I guess just, the Jets defense this season struggled the first 2 games against the run. Then they really dominated against New England, a really poor and unhealthy offensive line last week, and beat up Ramondre Stevenson. It's kind of a three-headed monster in a way, three-guy back. Tyler Beatty, of course, Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin. How have they separated the carries and distributed the carries for those guys? And what have you seen from those three pieces?
So the plan was going into the season, Javonte Williams would be not the bell cow, but he would be like 75% ish of the carries for that running back room. Rookie running back Audric Estimate went down with a knee injury. He's on IR. He's got 2 more games left. So that's why Tyler Beatty's now on the roster. Rookie Blake Watson has been a healthy scratch, even though he made the team. They kind of just hadn't made it just because they don't want him to get plucked from anybody to be signed to their active roster. But yeah, I think Javonte Williams was supposed to be the starter, and then Jaleel McLaughlin was supposed to be that guy right behind him. But they have been very underwhelming. And then when I say very underwhelming, like bottom of the league in terms of like EPA and efficiency at the running back position. So, and that's how I mentioned and iterated earlier in this podcast is Bo Nix was our leader in rushing yards the first 2 games of the season. That just can't happen, especially if you're a rookie quarterback. Tyler Beatty had 9 attempts for 70 yards in yesterday's game. He popped 1 carry for like 35 to 40 yards. I mean, he is an explosive back that Broncos fans have been hammering the table for since the preseason to get him like on the field, get him his carries, because it seems every time this dude touches the football, whether it's in training camp or the preseason the last 2 years, it's like it's either a 15 to 20 yard gain or he's getting a touchdown. Like he's one of those guys where I honestly, in this game, if they let him be the starter, I could see him blowing up a little bit. And I said it on my podcast yesterday, like Tyler Beatty has to be your number one, like priority on waiver wires in fantasy football right now. Javonte Williams, moving forward, from everything I'm hearing, I don't expect him to be the starter. He got benched after his fumble in the Buccaneers game yesterday, actually. And Jaleel McLaughlin right behind him has been honestly just as like frustrating and disappointing. He's getting literally like less than 3 yards a carry. Javonte's at 2.2 yards a carry on the season. The run blocking and the offensive line was really bad the first 2 games. Yesterday improved a lot, but the fact that those 2 running backs, Jaleel McLaughlin and Javonte Williams, are getting almost no yards after carry, yards after contact, and are just not picking up any yards in general, shows that Tyler Beatty is probably a starter moving forward.
Yeah, you mentioned the fantasy aspect of it. It might be somebody I have to look into. I'm a Pacheco fantasy owner, so I'm scrambling a little bit with some. My other options aren't exactly good right now. DeAndre Swift and Zach Charbonnet, who's only good until Kenneth Walker comes back. So might have to look down that road. Want to take a look at some of the receivers. Of course, 2 of the bigger weapons here for Bo Nix is Josh Reynolds and Courtland Sutton going into the season. Of course, Reynolds coming over from Detroit. Sutton's been here for a little while now. What have been your thoughts on those 2 guys this season and the connection so far between those 2 and, of course, Nix?
Honestly, in all honesty, the first 2 games very, very underwhelming and disappointing. Courtland Sutton was supposed to be a much better separator from that last year into this year. We saw the improvement throughout training camp, OTAs, and whatnot, but it just simply hasn't been there. And even yesterday, like he had a good game, 7 catches, 68 yards, led the team. But a lot of those are back shoulder throws, like slant targets where the DB's playing 10 yards off the line in zone coverage. So I would like to see him get better in separation, but it's not looking much hopeful in that area. Bo Nix is slowly starting to realize, like, yeah, if I'm gonna throw the ball to Cortland Sutton, my wide receiver one, it's gonna have to be those contested catch situations. Which honestly, that's not a beneficial situation for a rookie quarterback, especially in Bo Nix's like schematic fit, where he loves hitting guys like in the middle of the field, in between the numbers, like getting open quick in those RPOs. I mean, Sun can be good on those slants, but outside of that, I mean, his route tree in terms of just being able to create separation is not good. And the same goes for Josh Reynolds. I mean, he's a great contested catch receiver. He's a better separator than Cortland Sutton, which is sad to say, but those two guys have been a little bit disappointing. I know Josh Reynolds had a 93-yard game in week 2, but one of those was a flea flicker where Bo Nix kind of just threw it up as a prayer ball, and Reynolds came down with it in triple coverage. So those two guys have honestly been a little bit frustrating. I've been pounding the table for Marvin Mims Jr. and Troy Franklin to be more involved in this offensive game plan. And we saw that more in week 3. We saw them both on the field, which was awesome to see on a few of the plays, but I would like to see a little bit more going into this Jets game, create those yards, create more separation for Bo Nix. He's more, he takes much more advantage from those plays, and those guys are just fast. Like, you need to implement that speed in your offense.
Yeah, you mentioned Troy Franklin, an interesting name, of course, coming out of the draft this year of Oregon, name that was looking at for the Jets. Of course, they elected to go the Malachi Corley route. What do you feel? Just and again, I know small sample size, of course, for him, I haven't been involved much, but I guess how excited or expectations for him moving forward as a rookie?
Yeah, his inclusion in the offense has slowly gone up from weeks 1 to 2 to 3. In training camp, he did struggle to create separation. There were some drop issues, which, I mean, that's expected out of a 4th-round rookie.
Yeah.
He was a healthy scratch, actually, week 1 from Sean Payton. So I do expect his snaps to slowly go up throughout the season. I wouldn't expect him to be much of like a concern at all for the Jets secondary in this one. I mean, Jets secondary is talented, but I wouldn't expect him to be like a focal point at all for this Jets team going into week 4. He's going to be one of those guys that, like, he's kind of like a red shirt this year. I would say by the end of the year, yeah, he may be around like a 50% snap count, but I really don't see it being anything more than that, unless he just randomly has that random rookie game where he just goes off and has a lot of unlimited snaps and gets multiple deep receptions, deep targets. He had a deep target in the game yesterday, but he was unable to keep his feet in bounds. It was a little bit of a late throw from Nix, though. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about Troy Franklin. We traded up for him for a reason. We traded like 3 picks to get him. What I believe is a second pick of the 4th round. So I think there's a lot of promise with the speed, and just his vertical speed in general is very, very promising.
Once again, we're talking to Amir Farrell from Broncos Avenue. I want to shift over to the defensive side of the football. Both these teams last week dominated up front. Jets with 7 sacks. Broncos yesterday all over Mayfield with 7 sacks. Former Jet will be out there this weekend. JFM still don't quite understand the trade to give him away for nothing. We could use him right now, but either way, I'm not going to go on a whole rant about JFM, but definitely miss him. And even other guys, of course, Nick Bonitto, Zach Allen, even Dondre Tillman, who is kind of a really under the radar name that popped up yesterday afternoon. Just your thoughts on what Denver was able to do and how they were able to have success getting home to Mayfield.
Yeah, a lot of that pass rush should be credited to the secondary. They did a phenomenal job. Riley Moss, his 3rd career start, was very, very excellent opposite PS2. I mean, anytime you're asked to play opposite one of the best defensive backs in all football, that's going to be a tough task. And of course, he gave up the touchdown to Chris Godwin, which that's a tough matchup in itself. I mean, they found a way to get their slot receiver one-on-one with their outside cornerback, and obviously gave up that touchdown. But other than that, like, Riley Moss has been excellent. I'm very, very pleased with his progress. PS2 is PS2, in my opinion, the best corner in football. And then you got one of the more underrated slot corners in football, in Jaquan McMillan. Chris Godwin, I mean, he led the Bucs in receiving yards yesterday, but our slot cornerback Jaquan McMillan handled his business. That cornerback trio did really, really exceptional in the game yesterday, and that's a big reason why the defense was able to get home, that pass rush was able to get home, was because Baker Mayfield was holding on to the football forever. He couldn't get rid of the football. I mean, he should have probably thrown it away more than he did instead of holding on to the football. But that's why you hear guys like DeAndre Tillman, his first NFL game, got 2 sacks. We obviously he was on the practice squad. He's over from the XFL. You have guys like Nick Benito, Zach Allen, who's leading the NFL in interior pressure from interior defenders. I mean, he has been insane in the interior, big acquisition. And it helps out that we got a guy like John Franklin Myers, because that makes life easier on guys like DJ Jones, Malcolm Roach, and like I mentioned, Zach Allen. So yeah, I'm with you. I still don't know how we got that trade from you guys, but that was my favorite move of the offseason. He's been really good in the run game. Every time that he had a concussion in week 2, as soon as he left the field, it's like our run defense disappeared. He's been an excellent acquisition.
Yeah, he's awesome, and he's a great locker room guy too. He's not homegrown here. Of course, Douglas picked him up off waivers and stuff, and they gave him the extension in 2021. And it feels like the whole reasoning behind the trade was they couldn't pay him and Hassan Reddick, but Hassan Reddick isn't even here, so I don't want to quite go down that road. I'm happy we're 2-1, but I still question the whole process of how he went from an elite defensive line to a defensive line with 3 undrafted free agents and a reclamation project in Tack McKinley. So, but here we are, we're 2-1, can't complain too much. I want to talk a little bit about some other pieces on the defense. You mentioned Pat Surtain, so we can get right to him. Thoughts on that big contract? Of course, one of the elite corners in football.
Well deserved. Honestly, I thought he was underpaid. Even after I saw the contract, I was like, yeah, Sauce is going to get like 30 million a year. I felt like we probably underpaid him. And then literally, I think it was the day after, Jalen Ramsey leaps him for like 24.1 million a year instead of PS2's 24. That was a little bit frustrating, but hey, we gotta I mean, from a fan perspective, it's awesome because you paid him, and now some of that other extra cap space can be delegated to other areas of extensions we'll have to make later this season, and then obviously next year. I think Jaquan McMillan, our slot corner, is next in line to get paid. But yeah, I thought that contract was well deserved. Thought it was underpaid, honestly.
Yeah, and another player I want to get to as well, of course, been with you guys now for 3 seasons prior to spending some time in Philly, was Alex Singleton, kind of a leader on that defense. What you've seen from him so far, and of course going into Sunday as well, what we could expect from him.
Yeah, he's been great. He's been a big leader on that defense. Josie Jewell, we lost in free agency. I was a big fan of his. We lost him to the Carolina Panthers at the linebacker position. And Alex Singleton has stepped up. He's been a great communicator, something we really need on that defense. Him and PJ Locke, the safety, have been really good in that aspect. Just in terms of like football, though, he's been great as well, too. Weeks 1 and 2. And even last year, like we saw a little bit of like missed tackle attempts, and that's something that got a little bit frustrating for the fan base. But he has been excellent the first 3 weeks of the season in aspect. So I think he's someone definitely like a leader in terms of that run defense in the second level of the field.
All right, so now I want to take a look at now we've kind of taken a look at both offense, defensive side of the football. Some matchups to watch in this one. I guess we'll start on offense, Broncos defense. So Jets offense, Broncos defense. Some matchups to watch, of course, Garrett Wilson and this Jets receiving core against his Broncos cornerback room. Specifically, I think Pat Surtain, Garrett Wilson should, of course, be a lot of fun to look for on Sunday. Any other matchups you're watching on the defense side of the football for Denver?
I would say probably our defensive line and linebacker room against Braylon Allen in that running game. He's been awesome. He's a freak of nature. His physical build is insane for a running back. I think he's definitely someone that people are starting to pick up on waiver wires. He's been awesome for you guys. I don't know how Breece Hall has been there for you guys. I know he caught that touchdown on that wheel route that go route that he called to Aaron Rodgers. Thought that was a little funny in the huddle. But yeah, that running game I'm looking forward to a lot against us, just because it was a little bit non-existent with the Buccaneers. But the first 2 games of the season, we struggled against the run. So for your guys' run game against our defensive run stopping is definitely something I'm looking forward to. I'm very confident in our secondary, so that's not really a big issue or concern of mine. I know that Aaron Rodgers is really talented though, so I don't really expect him to. And honestly, this has been across the entire NFL. Like, we're not seeing a lot of quarterbacks throw for much. It's really just like the run game that we're seeing win a lot of teams games this year. It's a little bit shocking. That's always been the key to winning football games in this league is running the football effectively. But we're seeing a lot more this year. Is like if you can run the football, you're gonna win games, and we're seeing that a lot with like the Chargers and other teams as well. If you can't run the football, you're basically just screwed. And I think we have a great secondary, so that's why I think the main matchup to watch in this game is your guys' run game against our run defense.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even I think one of the biggest, I guess, that showcases that is Buffalo. I mean, this is a team that's been heavy pass. Of course, Allen throwing a ton. They've been running a lot, relying on a lot on James Cook. That part of it's been Joe Brady. You saw a little bit of that transition last year, but yeah, it's been a little bit more of an old school style of football through the first 3 weeks that we've seen throughout the league. Now I want to shift over Jets defense, Broncos offense. Some matchups you're looking forward to there.
Or I'm sorry, can you repeat it?
The Jets defense, Broncos offense, right? Yeah, I think opposite.
Oh,
Just
okay.
the matchups that you're looking forward to there.
Um, I would say on that, I would say I'm excited for Tyler Beatty. I think I already mentioned him. I think he's someone who obviously hasn't had a lot of snaps. I'm looking forward to see how he plays against that Jets defense. I mean, he's someone like I mentioned. Every time he touches the ball, he gets a good amount of yards after contact, and he like it's almost like 10 plus yards. I mean, I want to see how he looks with like a 15 to 20 yard 20 attempt game. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Our wide receivers, I mean, I just don't have much hope with those guys. I would love to see Cortland Sutton have a big game in terms of separation for once, but that's going to be hard against Sauce Gardner, who's one of the best DBs in all football. So, yeah, I would say probably our running backs against your guys' run defense, just like the vice versa for us.
Now you mentioned Tyler Beatty. He's of course probably an underrated player, under the radar guy coming into this game. Are there any other guys Denver wise that Jets fans, the Jets as a whole, should be looking out for? Both offense, defense, some underrated players that could potentially make a couple plays in this game.
I know I kind of dogged on him a little bit earlier in the show, but Jaleel McLaughlin is a little bit of a threat in the receiving game. They have a pretty extensive like amount of plays for him in the receiving game, so he could potentially become a weapon. I wouldn't really worry about that too much though, just because the screens have been a little bit predictable with him, and the dump offs with him in the receiving game. I would say Marvin Mims too is like someone waiting to explode. We traded up for him in the second round last year. He hasn't been super involved in the offense through the first 3 weeks, but his snap count is slowly going up. It did go up a little bit from week 2 to week 3. So I think we're just waiting for that game where we finally see him become a deep threat in this offense. And I think once Bo Nix starts utilizing his eyes downfield, he could be someone that, because you look on film and that week 2, week 3, there's been a few plays where he was like wide, and I mean wide open. So if we can start getting him more involved and dialing up plays for him, he could be like a sneaky weapon that could pick up some big time yardage against the Jets for sure.
Yeah, definitely something to look for. So to close things out, appreciate you coming on as always. Great time talking all things Jets Broncos. See if it's same result, different result as last year. But I am curious, prediction for this game.
Oh man, it was tough. I was thinking about it this morning. I have to see who's going to be active for this game. We
Yeah.
do have some guys potentially returning, and I always get a better feeling about the game the day of. Like all week, I thought we were definitely getting blown out by the Buccaneers, but there was just a different feeling going to this Bucs game yesterday, hours before kickoff. Broncos country showed up, and there's just I don't know, there's a different feeling about this team. This one, it's a little tough. I want to believe that after 2 games, a 2-game win streak with the Jets, that they'll finally give one up. But I do have to temper my expectations a little bit. I think it's going to be a really good game. As of now, this could change later in the week. As of now, I do have the Jets winning 19-17. Your guys' defense is better than the Bucs. Aaron Rodgers is, in my opinion, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league still at this age. You guys are a little bit healthier, so I would say Jets 19-17. I think it's going to be a good game though.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm always like that as well. Early in the week, you're kind of not feeling so great, and then
Yeah.
Sunday morning you wake up and it's like, yeah, we're winning 40-0. So it's always how it is sometimes for me as well. Just to close things out, where can everybody find all your work? Of course, social media, YouTube, podcasts, all that good stuff.
Thank you. It was a good talk with you as well. You can find me at Broncos Avenue on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter is at Broncos Ave, Broncos AVE. You can find my work on Predominantly Orange, writing articles. Should have some articles out today. You can just look up Amir Farrell / Predominantly Orange. And then my podcast is Broncos Avenue as well. But thanks for having me back on the show, man. It was a great time talking Broncos Jets with you.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. It was an awesome time. And as always, make sure to stay tuned. We'll have a lot more content coming your way the rest of the week as we get closer to Sunday Showdown. And as always, until next time, JETS, 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 Jets. Thanks for watching.